Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Ministry Show. This week, we're going to continue on this idea of monitoring, which is such an important factor in building a thriving ministry and having your best year ever. But this time, we're going to talk a little bit more about the confidence side of monitoring and what it does for you and others in your ministry. And then we're going to delve into our direction, not our intention, gives us our destination. But the main thing is that we want to know facts versus opinion or conjecture. Because we as pastors and church leaders get a lot of opinion, a lot of conjecture, a lot of wishes, a lot of hopes. But significant ministry and thriving ministry is always built on what we know, not what we think, feel, have an opinion about, or whatever. So we are going to dive into the continuation of monitoring.
And Chris, where did you need confidence early on in ministry? You mentioned that we're going to be talking about that today. We all needed to grow in confidence. So in your early days, what are some ways?
Well, here's what happened in my early days. And some of you out there will relate to this and some maybe not, but I had a natural confidence kind of in anything that I did. And I think it came from my parents because my parents were the type of parents that were super supportive for all 6 of their children on whatever we wanted to do. So that confidence that they had, and not telling me no, not telling me don't, not telling me what not to do, those kinds of things kind of transferred over. And so I just thought everything would always go well, which early on in ministry, it did. And so some people have that natural confidence like I did, but natural confidence will only take you so far. And just like with me, it took me only so far. And then I kind of crashed and burned, honestly, because my natural actual ability caught up with my confidence level, which was probably a little bit imaginary. And that's when I learned that the natural confidence has to be matched with factual confidence. And that combination gives you a multiplier instead of an additional. And so in my case, I had a natural confidence that some people would follow. But then when results started wavering, in other words, the facts of my ministry did not match my confidence level, I had to take a look at my own self and go, okay, well, what do I need to learn? What do I need to know? How do I need to change my thoughts, attitudes, and behaviors so that my ministry could be built on a rock instead of somebody's own confidence can be a little bit maybe misplaced? Might be a long answer to your question, Pam.
That's good.
At least in my world, that's kind of how it worked.
Yeah, that's good. Well, monitoring to know. And so we want to know, does your church know how much money is coming in each week? Do you know who's serving each Sunday? I know for me, I love to print out a schedule or pull it up on my phone or whatever and take a look at that schedule of volunteers to see who's serving. Not only to look to see who's serving, but also it gives you a good opportunity to pray for those that are serving. And just, make sure that on Sunday, if they're feeling equipped and spirit-led and doing a great job in ministry.
Well, Pam, last week we talked about this concept, this idea of relative certainty. And when we know with relative certainty, then that breeds confidence in us that's infectious with our teams. And this is whether it's a staff team, whether it's a volunteer team, whether it's the whole congregation, or even in your community. When we don't know, then, that's pretty tenuous. I remember this many, many years ago. I've only asked one gal to marry me. Her name's Kathy. She said yes. But I knew with relative certainty that she was going to say yes before I asked her. Fortunately for me, she said yes. And those of you that know Kathy know that I got the better end of the deal. But my point is this: the relative certainty that I had that Kathy was going to say yes to my marriage proposal gave me the confidence to ask her, even though I was still nervous.
It's good.
Now, also when it comes to this idea of confidence and monitoring, we need to understand that it's our direction, not our intention, that determines our destination. Now, I live in Colorado Springs, and if I want to go back to San Diego, I need to go southwest. But if I head north on the 25, then my direction, not my intention, is going to determine my destination, because I'm going to go through Denver. If I keep driving, eventually I'm going to be somewhere up in Canada. which is not what I want. We have to make a differentiation between our thoughts and hopes and good intentions and good actions. We've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. Andy Stanley has a really great resource as it relates to direction, not intention, determining your destination. And you can see it there. It's called Game Plan. So we never monitor intent, we monitor action, because that's something that happened that we can get the number for, that we can hear the stories from, and all of that. I think it was Coach John Wooden, the NCAA champion. I think he had 10 championships in basketball. Probably won't be repeated again, but I heard him say before, if you fail to plan, then you're absolutely planning to fail. So the intention is the plan. The action is what you do to enact or execute that plan.
Yeah. You mentioned going back to San Diego. You said Southwest. It made me think of Southwest Airlines and how they had a plan. I discovered this within the last few years that back in the day, it was businessmen that flew, but they had a plan that they wanted everyone to have affordable flights so grandparents could go see their grandchildren. If you were in college and you had a sweetheart in another state, you could go and visit them. So their plan was reliable, low-cost air travel. Well, we know what happened. They started to monitor, they started to see the results of that. And I recently heard a TED Talk where one of the CEOs said they would get thank you cards, still do get thank you cards. So that was kind of the way they could determine the stories of what happened. I remember her saying that Herb got invited to weddings of people who said, we were able to date in college because of you and what you've done. So there were so many stories they shared because of the game plan that they put in action years ago. I just thought it was a great story. I love Southwest.
So when it comes to direction versus intention in ministry, a lot of times we have financial accounting and we can tell to the penny how much money came in, how it was spent, and who gave it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't sit down at the end of the year and go, well, I think Pam gave about $10,000 and send you a contribution report for 10 grand. I mean, no, it's to the penny.
Right.
Yeah, at least when I get a giving report, it's to the penny. So we do pretty good in our churches at the financial accounting, but what we need to do great at is the people accounting. It's so important because it's people that end up in heaven.
Right.
Money does not end up in heaven. I've read that the streets are paved with gold.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that's a metaphor or actually true, but gold is pretty valuable to us, but it's paving material to the Lord. You know,
Right.
I mean, he doesn't need jewels and money and all that kind of thing. When we monitor the right things, and I'm not here to tell you what the right things are, but you need to determine the right things for your ministry. Maybe it has to do with retention rate, number of guests, how many volunteers you might have, different participants in ministry. Remember, people vote with their feet,
Right.
that kind of a thing. Then if we know our people well, we really don't have to worry about the money side of ministry because people who are engaged, people who are served well, people who are participating in what we're offering, they are happy for the most part to go ahead and give to the cause that's helping them live a better life, become a better person, and engage in ministry. One of the things that we talk about in our coaching program over and over and over again is if we as pastors and church leaders add value, then people will be attracted to us. So it's not how do we get more people? That's the wrong question, at least in my opinion. It's how do I add more value? When I add more value as a pastor or church leader, people are naturally drawn to value.
That's right.
That's a direction issue, not an intention issue. My intention might be to get more people, but the direction in order to achieve the attention is add more value. So that's an example of that, Pam.
It's good. Monitoring with software is what we want to talk about as well. And it doesn't matter what software you're using to monitor.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Okay.
I probably should say, yeah, it does. Church Community Builder is the best. We're just going to put it out there. I've used many. It's the best. Okay, there you go. Chris, when you and I started ministry, we started with paper and pen. We didn't even have the internet back then. So today, thank goodness for church management softwares that allow us to do things. And I personally do think that we do it the best. We've got some great metrics, like we mentioned before, and great reporting. We can't keep everything in our heads. As much as you and I feel like we can, we can't. We don't have corporate memory. So having a way to pull that data is critical to monitoring what's important to each one of us.
Not everybody stays at the church for forever, staff people, senior pastors, and so on and so forth. And so if we're not recording what's going on, then we lose that when somebody leaves. Or if you're like me, you lose it the next day anyway because your memory is not good. Back in the day, I can remember the first computer my church got was donated.
Yes. Yep.
And it was like,
hmm
oh, oh, crud. I have to learn a new thing. And I was like, "Ugh." So I didn't know that it was going to make life easier for me eventually.
Right.
And isn't that true about new things?
Oh, for sure.
When you make a new decision, you meet a new person or whatever, it's harder at the beginning, but the rewards come later with a new friend, with a new software program, it doesn't matter what it is. It takes a little bit more time at the beginning and then the rewards come. And so monitoring is the same way. It takes a little bit more time at the beginning, but the rewards of knowing who, what, where, when, why, how through our monitoring, man, it pays dividends into the future for sure.
Yeah. I felt the same way with technology. And so I'm the first to admit it that I've never was strong in technology, but I've had to learn it and I've grown to love it and appreciate it. And like we said earlier, the metrics that we have at Church Community Builder is amazing. It does let us see things in the past, Chris, like you talked about, in the future and currently, but also we can plan for the future, which is great.
That is one of the best things ever. As you know, winds create energy.
Yeah.
One of the best things about monitoring is we can monitor people's wins, the different types of activities that they have, whether it's a wedding, the birth of a child, the adoption of a child, a promotion, a significant event of some type. And then we can remind them, can send a card about the wins in people's lives. When they get that from me as a pastor or church leader, oh, I'm telling you, it makes their day. And sometimes we think it's not that big of a deal. Well, it might not be that big of a deal to you, but it is a big deal to them. When we monitor these wins, we can add value and energy to our staff, our volunteers, others within our community. So it's a good idea to monitor the wins, baptisms, discipleship, milestones, all that kind of thing.
Right. I know for me, process cues have saved me because they do allow me to capture those wins, follow up. We talked about this, I think, in one of our previous shows, even reconnecting with people on those anniversary dates, whether it's a win or maybe it's a loss, Chris. Maybe it's a loss of a loved one.
It could, yes, absolutely.
We want to monitor that too. We want to go back and connect with those people. So processes are great. Tap into those, begin using those, and just a lot of great features.
When it comes to monitoring, as Pam's mentioned, not only the wins, but the losses in life, where grief becomes a big deal. And I know in my world as a pastor, there's a lot of support for people at the loss of someone or something that they love. Could be a job, could be a pet, could be a significant other, a child. Well, I learned this, and I could only do it by monitoring. The card, the note, the flowers on the anniversary of that loss meant more because everybody else forgets.
That's right.
But if I monitor well, I can be prompted, I can remember.
I was just thinking about having the ability to create maybe even some reports that you can email yourself or you can have emailed automatically to your staff so that those reminders come to you. We can't remember all that. So having those reports or metrics that come to you that are right before you, process notifications. And I know you mentioned about the calendar way back in the day when you started.
Monitoring is an important deal. It's the glue that holds these other four together. That's why it's so important. We've got a couple action items there for you. Take one of the concepts that we've talked about, or maybe you were prompted by the Lord on something that we haven't talked about, but something to start monitoring in your ministry so that it will help you learn and know, gain confidence, and do better. And then I really want to encourage you one more time to review the Andy Stanley sermon series called Game Plan, or you can get the book, if you like to read, The Principle of the Path, which is the written version of that sermon series. It'll really help you on this idea. Direction versus intention determines your destination.
I'd love to hear some testimonies from people that have read that book and put some things in practice.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah, if
good.
you guys can
Yeah.
write in, we'd love to hear that. So, next week, we're going to be talking about time and how to invest it and monitor it well. And we have a great story we're going to share next week from one of the owners of our company.
The marble
Oh,
story.
it's so good.
Yeah.
It made me realize how valuable time is, and you just can't get it back. So, you don't want to miss that. And you definitely want to get some of your staff that maybe haven't been listening to the ministry show yet. Tune in. It's going to be really good. You don't want to miss it.
Yeah, well, one of the sponsors that's near and dear to my heart is North Coast Training. Man, they do such a fantastic job of the practical application of what we're talking about. They do workshops, they have the Sticky Teams Conference. So go to northcoasttraining.org if you want to learn some more. Check those guys out. And then, of course, our very own Build Gathering is coming up. Go to buildgathering.com if you'd like to find out more about that. This is all designed to help you build a substantial, thriving ministry, which isn't easy,
No.
but sometimes it's getting the right information that makes it easier. I can guarantee you at this conference, you are going to get the right information. We just love that you're a participant here at the ministry show. Pam and I both hope that something that we've mentioned, something we've talked about, either spurred a thought for you, or spurred an action for you that will help you become better at what you do. Until next week, God bless you. We're so pleased that you're part of the show. Thank you so much.